Station and the Ad Council.
The views and opinions expressed during this program are not necessarily those of Overseas Radio Network, the Expat Broadcasting Group, the staff, management, or broadcast partners. All information provided is for educational purposes only. Before taking action, consult a licensed professional.
The Coast to Coast.
Check 1, 2. Testing.
Now hear me.
You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica.
Once the volume control is set, do not readjust.
On the Overseas Radio Network.
That's why I want you to go on the radio.
This Week in Costa Rica, bringing you the latest information from expats, experts, and people just like you who chose to escape, retire, and live in Costa Rica.
Listen and decide in your own mind what sounds best.
Got a question? A comment?
They have to be dealt with on an altogether different level.
Or just want to talk to an expert on living in Costa Rica?
Oh, brother, what a way to make a living.
Give us a call now.
Hello?
Lines are open and your answers are just one phone call away.
Now, if you have some suggestions to offer, we're willing to listen to you.
Ready?
This Week in Costa Rica with your host,
Who you?
Corey Coates.
And now, folks,
It's showtime.
Welcome to This Week in Costa Rica. My name is Corey. I'm coming to you live from the Overseas Radio Broadcast Facility here in lovely Jaco Beach, Costa Rica, on the west coast, this beautiful little jewel of a country, the Switzerland of Central America, as they say, for a number of reasons. Of course, today we are going to be covering a lot of things Costa Rica, but more importantly, we're going to be focusing on you guys. I'm happy to say that coming back from the holidays and settling back into January means that I have an opportunity to catch up on a few things, work-wise, personal-wise, working on my resolutions, thinking about cutting out sugar. But that's all about me. Let's talk a little bit more about you. This Week in Costa Rica, of course, is a show presented to you every week live on the Overseas Radio Network from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Its purpose is to help you guys who are looking at expatriating from places like the United States or Europe or Canada, Australia, what have you. Mostly the United States. That's where a lot of our listeners are, as you can well imagine. A lot going on in the United States that encourages people to either get out or get away. For many different reasons, of course. Everyone has their motivations, but the idea behind this show is for those who are thinking of pointing their laser at Costa Rica. Well, I'm going to give you a couple targets down here. I mentioned earlier that really what this show is going to be today is all about you. And that is indeed the truth. I say that because catching up on a lot of my things here work-wise and personally gives me a chance as well to get down into the mail sack. And, of course, we don't get a lot of mail here anymore. I do get some in the studio through my P.O. box in Miami, really the best way to get mail in Costa Rica. But I have a lot of email here from listeners. Coming into the new year, we've picked up a lot of new folks, and welcome. It's always good to have people here who have never listened to the show before and are tuning in. I get some emails asking, hey, I need to know exactly right from the beginning what this show is about and what you guys have covered. Well, don't worry. Don't worry. You can very easily, if you're there now, on the overseasradio.com website, and that's overseasradio.com, go over to the archive section, and you can find a lot of previous episodes of this particular show in archive form. Lovely little MP3s you can download anytime you want. Put them on your iPhone, your iPad, your iPod, your Android device, whatever little device that you got for Christmas, or if you're like me, you got yourself for Christmas, so that you can enjoy this program anytime, anywhere, anyplace, anyhow. Getting back to the email, though, what I'm going to focus today on is answering a lot of the listener email that has come in over November, December, and January. Eek, yes, I'm a little bit behind. I don't mind telling you. There's a lot of mail there. But I'm not going to do it alone. Of course, I'm going to have my co-host, Mr. Lyle Head, coming in shortly to the broadcast studio and address some of these questions with me. Lyle, of course, shares a similar experience. He and I are close in age, and by close I mean we're not decades apart. We're both in our 30s. I'm sure he doesn't mind me telling you that. I'm in the upper 30s. He's in the lower 30s. We've both been here, almost 7 years now in Costa Rica. And through those 7 years, we certainly have picked up a lot of information, quite a bit of experience, and made a lot of contacts and a lot of friends. So he and I are going to go through the mail sack together and try and answer a lot of the questions that you guys have for us about moving to Costa Rica and living in Costa Rica. Many of them are lifestyle questions. Some of them are very specific, and specifically questions about immigration, questions about relocation, questions about where to live in Costa Rica, questions about the different ways that you can make your dollar stretch in a place like Costa Rica. It was just recently ranked, I believe, number 5 by the good folks over at International Living as one of the top retirement destinations still. Is it too pricey for many? A little bit. We're going to talk about that because there's a great email regarding that. Questions about building or buying. And as well, I've got interviews coming up today to help you out as well. This is a 2-hour program. But don't forget, just because we're answering email doesn't mean that we won't answer your call. If you guys want to join us on the program today and chime in, you certainly can. The number is 888-741-7472. We welcome your call. If you want to ask me or Lyle a question about anything Costa Rica, anything at all, if you really. I mean, if you like just calling in and just talking to me, you certainly can do that too. But more specifically, we want to help you guys out with your dream to expatriate to this particular destination, as many do. Statistically, it looks like there's still about 100,000 expats living here in Costa Rica, considering the population is just a nick over 4 million total. That's a lot of expats living down here. So again, This Week in Costa Rica is here to help you understand why. Why do I sound so happy all the time? Why does Lyle walk into the studio every Monday afternoon and say, hey man, just living the dream? What is that dream? I think you know it because you've been dreaming it. I don't want to get too flaky here, but I can say that there's some truth to the notion of if you can dream it, you can do it. I dreamt it. I'm doing it. Lyle dreamt it. He's doing it. We're going to have a conversation with Mr. Dan Stevens in the next segment. He dreamt it. He's doing it. Heck, he's down here actually trying to fix what he thinks might be wrong with it. I think I'm going to go out and refill my coffee. I'm having an afternoon coffee today and get to your calls, get to your emails, and get to you guys again. A couple ways you can reach us, of course. 888-741-7472 is the toll-free number anywhere in Canada or the U.S. You can add us on Skype if you like. It's overseas.radio. If you don't want to call us, we can jump on there and chat with you. Certainly can Skype you in. You can always go over to thisweekincostarica.com. You'll find our Facebook page. Like us over there. So we like you. You can tweet, whatever you like. Any way you want to get a hold of us, certainly do. Coming up on the next segment, though, let's have a chat with Dan Stevens, editor and founder of Costa Rican Times. See what's new over in San Jose. Then we'll come back to the beach with you. Hang on, guys. You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
Sit back and relax. You are tuned into the Overseas Radio Network.
Looking to invest, live, or retire overseas? Before you pack your bags, you need to log on to NagelLaw.com. It's the only stop you need to make for global business, asset protection, estate planning, overseas residency, and citizenship needs. Our experts have experience working in 41 countries around the world. Starting a business abroad can be overwhelming without expert help. We assist clients with foreign trust, foundations, corporations, LLCs, IBCs, and property acquisition. Need help with IRA assets abroad, capital formation, foreign securities issues, banking, brokerage, or finance needs? NagelLaw.com. We ensure compliance with U.S. tax and regulatory laws. We engineer global structures to help our clients achieve their personal and business objectives. To find out about our introductory personal asset protection plan, visit NagelLaw.com, NagelLaw.com. We represent capital overseas.
Are you ready to enjoy a truly personal banking relationship again? One where a real human being will take your call and knows you by name? Does bank privacy and secrecy mean something to you? Well, these mean something to us at Key International Bank Limited. You and your needs are the most important aspect of the relationship. Key International Bank has been in business since 2003 and serves discerning clients who want high-level private banking and investment services. Traditional services include deposit and savings accounts in 5 different currencies, international debit cards for quick ease to your money, access to a wide variety of investment products and funds unavailable in the United States and Canada, and loans in multiple currencies for properties and homes throughout Latin America. Key International Bank Limited, your private banking solution. Visit our website at www.bankinbelize.com.
You've decided that you want to move overseas for that quality of life experience you've always dreamed of. But you don't want to give up the best of back home. We agree. Things like high-speed internet, safe neighborhoods where you can stroll along a shaded sidewalk, a place where you know your neighbors and you have friends close by. These are important. Grand Pacifica Beach and Golf Resort gives you the best comforts of back home paired with the exceptional lifestyle only available south of the border. Imagine strolling along over 3 miles of secluded beach, playing a round of golf along the ocean, surfing a world-class break all to yourself, enjoying a fine meal on your balcony and toasting to another spectacular sunset. All this and more can be yours only an hour from Managua. Complete home and lot packages start under $100,000 and a nice home on the golf course is yours for the mid-twos. Come visit for a weekend and enjoy our oceanside golf course. Ride horseback on the beach, meet your future neighbors, and make some new friends. Grand Pacifica may be a place you'd like to call home. For more information, email Mike at mikesgringolife.com. That's Mike at mikesgringolife.com.
We want to see a world where cancer is scarce. That's why we help people reduce their risk of getting it in the first place. We help them plan healthy diets, get regular exercise, and learn which tests to take. The less cancer there is, the more birthdays we celebrate. We're the American Cancer Society, the official sponsor of birthdays. Visit us at morebirthdays.com. Together, we'll stay well, get well, find cures, and fight back.
You're tuned in to overseasradio.com, the station to help you reach your dream destination.
This Week in Costa Rica is hosted by Canadian entrepreneur Corey Coates. Corey has been living and working as a professional in Costa Rica for over 5 years.
Well, I've been lost in my own place, and I'm getting with it.
He's built a vast network of professional connections to help you with everything from immigration to relocation. Call in or send Corey an email to talk about the steps you need to take in making your dream of living in paradise a reality.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. Another, guess what, sunny, beautiful afternoon here on the beach in Jaco. Of course, today's focus is going to be your emails and your calls, 888-741-7472. But this is segment 2, which means that I got to get off the beach for at least 9 minutes. Go spend some time with my friend, the founder, editor, managing director, and CEO. I'm giving you more titles, my friend, by the way, at Costa Rican Times. Mr. Dan Stevens. Dan, welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica.
How you doing, Corey? It is a beautiful day. I love dry season in Costa Rica. You get to go out every day, enjoy the sunshine. So
this time of year is probably one of my favorites, especially now that I'm out of the valley. I loved it there. A lot of wind, a lot of sun, a lot of heat. But getting on the beach, boy, this is just, it doesn't get better than this.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So whenever you get hot, you just go jump in the ocean and go surfing. So
I got a new thing as soon as I get done these programs, which is about 3 o'clock my time, 4 o'clock Eastern time. I just I put on my board shorts and I open a cold drink and I go lay on the beach for 30 minutes and then I go for a big long swim. I think I've added 10 years to my life. Honestly.
Sounds perfect. And so that would be great for people that are looking to relocate down here and to follow your example.
Now, Dan, you're kind of an expert on a lot of things, I would say, to be honest, because I'm a regular reader of your online news source, Costa Rican Times. That's Costa Rican with an N. Of course, I'm going to put the link, as always, on thisweekincostarica.com. But one of the things that I do enjoy is that not only do you bring some of the news and blues of Costa Rica and expose, I think, a lot of the corruption that's going on, you have some really great editorials and some great articles about some of the different topics that a lot of expats need to concern themselves with here in Costa Rica. That's one of the things I love about this paper. And today, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you about some of the issues of relocating to Costa Rica.
Not a problem, not a problem. Well, one of the big things that we see when people either come down here to live or they are down here on vacation is sometimes they pack their common sense away. I don't mean to be rude to people, but if you leave your iPhone and your wallet on your towel on the beach and you go out and you go surfing for an hour and a half and you come back and it's gone, you probably wouldn't have left those valuables on your towel at home. So don't do it here. I think that one of the biggest things that people want to know when they're thinking about relocating down here is actually shipping their things, and whether or not they should buy a vehicle here or ship one down, etc. And I don't know for you, Corey, what did you find when you moved down here?
I think it depends on the value of what you decide that you need to keep or you want to bring with you. Okay, because, for example, in my case, I didn't have a lot of furniture or a car that mattered to me. I found the best way to do it was to get rid of a lot of my stuff in Canada, put the things that were super valuable to me but I didn't want to bring into storage there, and then just buy all new stuff when I arrived in Costa Rica.
Right. No, completely understand. What I tell people is when it comes to getting a vehicle down here is the cost of the vehicle. You can find deals down here, but most of the ones that are too good to be true, there's a reason why. The cost of shipping a vehicle down here and buying one here, if it's a nice vehicle, is about the same. From what I've found, just because the cost of taxes is about 30% on cars. And the one thing I say is I actually encourage people to ship their vehicle down here because they know the history of it. A lot of people after Hurricane Katrina blew through in the States a long time ago, and I'm just using this as an example, a lot of those cars that were flood damaged were shipped down to Costa Rica and sold down here as almost blue book value.
Wow.
So they got them for pennies on the dollar up there. And yeah, you know what? When you went out for a test drive with it, it made it through that first 3 or 4 miles. And they're like, okay, well, let's stop and give me the money for it. And of course, there's no warranties down here. So when you're buying a car down here, most vehicles, if you look on Craigslist, et cetera, are about the same price as shipping your car and buying it in the States, but at least you know the history of the car in the States.
Sure. You know, that's a great point. And it's hard, too, when I think I know people who have done it both ways. I know folks that have shipped their cars down and paid all the taxes and tariffs and had to go to the port and pick it up in Limon. And it just seems like a big pain in the butt. I guess it depends on how much that car matters to you. I know a lot of people who've brought their cars down here. That car is an important part of their life. You know, they love their car. You know, for me, a car is a car. It matters less.
Right. Well, I encourage people to definitely use a shipping company or a relocation company when they're transferring their items down here, just because getting it from your house to port in the States is really not that difficult because most things are run very efficiently and everything's above board in the States. But or in Canada, et cetera. I mean, I'm just using the U.S. as a country example, but when you get it to port in Costa Rica, that's when you really run through problems. Because if you don't have connections with customs brokers and you don't have the ability to know what's going on there, then you can get a little bit taken advantage of. The actual cost of getting something trapped in port or not doing it correctly can be very, very stressful. And so we do encourage people using a relocation company. We actually have a company called Shipping Costa Rica that we encourage people to use. And they have a free ebook that is on our site where it really gives the ins and outs of shipping. So
I think it's a great point because you know what it boils down to, Dan, for me is not only with just shipping your car as part of relocation, but a lot of services going with a third-party private company that does this day in and day out is always worth the extra dollars.
I completely agree. And if you're relocating to Costa Rica, you have enough stress going on in your life with changing your lifestyle and going through culture shock and just adjusting to what life is down in Costa Rica, than to have to deal with getting your items from U.S., Canada, wherever you're coming from, whatever your home nation is, to Costa Rica. It's really something you really don't want to deal with because there can be a lot of stress that's incurred if you try to do it yourself.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And, I think that's what happens to a lot of expats here within the first 6 months is that they get ground down by some of the red tape involved and bureaucracy in so many of these different systems. And let's face it, again, in Latin America, there's a good deal of corruption that you just don't have time or interest in dealing with. Unless you're Latin American savvy, these are just things that you don't want to get involved in.
I agree. And also what I encourage people to do is, before they actually pack up all their things and they buy a house in Costa Rica, is I encourage them to come down here and live for about 6 months to a year. And because you're really going to find out if you can adjust to the difference in culture from where you're coming from to here. And there's no reason in making a large purchase, be it a piece of real estate or just changing your life completely, unless you've actually adjusted to the culture here and know you can handle it.
You're right. We're running up into a break here, but I think I'm going to hang on and keep you for another segment if you don't mind.
Not a problem at all.
Excellent. We're talking to Dan Stevens, the editor and founder of the Costa Rican Times. That's CostaRicanTimes.com, one of my favorite online resources. You guys want to chime in? 888-741-7472 is the number. You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
Sit back and relax. You are tuned into the Overseas Radio Network.
Okay, you're not stupid. You see the handwriting on the wall. You are thinking about joining the millions of Americans who have already left the country. But where do you go? You don't want to make the mistake of jumping from the frying pan into the fire. You need accurate info to make one of the most important decisions of your life. You need EscapeTheUSANow.com. You don't want to have regrets because your expat country collapsed due to crime, conflict, disease, famine, natural disaster, scarcity, war, or a government gone bad. Only at EscapeTheUSANow.com will you discover the handful of countries that offer true freedoms and unbelievable opportunities that most people could only dream of. EscapeTheUSANow.com is the information you cannot afford not to have. Information that took over 30 years to research, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, with more than 250,000 miles traveled. For less than $2.50 per month, you can have what may be the most life-saving information you have ever obtained. EscapeTheUSANow.com, so you don't jump from the frying pan into the fire.
This is 90 Seconds with Joel Nagel on the Overseas Radio Network.
I have under $250,000 in assets I'd like to protect. What is your opinion of holding precious metals in my asset portfolio?
Well, we're big fans of precious metals. Our firm's focus is on asset protection, and there's really no better store of value than precious metals. If you look historically, for example, at gold, 100 years ago, an ounce of gold would buy a fine tailored man's suit, and gold cost $20 an ounce. Today, an ounce of gold would buy a fine tailored man's suit, and that same suit would cost $1,800. So gold is a store of value.
Isn't it also a great way to protect against governments who, essentially, let's look at the United States at this moment. They're basically printing money as they see fit. Wouldn't gold be a great way to protect your assets from this?
Governments can't print precious metals the way they can print and manipulate their own currencies. So for folks who really want to protect themselves against devaluation, inflation, all the things that can happen to paper currencies.
Well, all this said, what percentage of my assets should I consider having in precious metals?
we highly recommend that folks hold at least 10% of their net worth in precious metals.
For more information on the 15 global strategies to protect your wealth, visit nagellaw.com. That's NAGELLAW.com.
This is Kathleen Petticord and Leif Simon with the Live and Invest Overseas Minute on the Overseas Radio Network. If your plan is to move to another country full-time, then one of the most important things to research is the available options for obtaining a foreign residency visa there. Not all countries make it easy to establish permanent legal foreign residency. Meantime, others roll out the welcome mat for foreign retirees, offering many good options for how to become a full-time resident and even in some cases take advantage of special tax and other savings depending on your residency status.
You can generally avoid the issue of establishing foreign residency altogether by spending fewer than 3 months in any one country annually. In some countries, you can remain in the country as a tourist for only 2 months, while other places allow you as much as 6 months.
The most foreign retiree-friendly countries right now include Panama, Belize, Uruguay, Ecuador, Nicaragua, and in Malaysia, which is the only country in Asia that offers a straightforward residency option for foreign retirees. For more information on making the leap overseas, visit us online at liveandinvestoverseas.com.
Live call-in shows and hosts from your favorite countries. This is the Overseas Radio Network.
Good. What? What is it? This Week in Costa Rica. Fun, informative, and your questions answered. Talk live with one of our on-air experts and start living your dream now.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. Another sunny afternoon here in Jaco Beach, broadcasting live from the Overseas Radio Facility. I kept my friend Dan Stevens over in San Jose on the line for the next segment. I know he's a busy man, but we were in the middle of a great conversation talking about relocation. Dan's, of course, the editor of the Costa Rican Times, one of my favorite online news resources that I read daily to not only get some great information about what's going on in Costa Rica on a day-to-day basis, but we mentioned, and I brought him on again today because there are a lot of articles and editorials that I find on his website that are very insightful for a lot of expats who are thinking about moving to Costa Rica or those that are living in Costa Rica, and a lot of things that we need to think about either ahead of this move or while we're here. And we used to have a show on the Overseas Radio Network hosted by Macarena Rose out of Belize. And the title of this show just came to mind as we were talking, Dan. It's Don't Leave Your Brain at the Border. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that. When we see a lot of people expatriate to places like Costa Rica, some of their common sense tends to go out the window.
I'm in complete agreement. I mean, it's almost like when they come down here, it's a permanent vacation for their brain to stop functioning, and unfortunately, that can result in people having stressful problems here, being it petty theft or things get or things that just, if they use their common sense as we mentioned, then it wouldn't happen. So,
you know, I've heard there's an expression, I think it's called Superman syndrome, where people decide to expatriate and move to a foreign country, and there can be, unfortunately, a superiority complex where they move to a place like Costa Rica and they think, well, I'm coming from a first world nation to a third world or developing nation, pick your favorite. Ergo, I am superior to the people in the country in which I'm expatriating to, and I don't need to apply the common sense that I used in the United States or Canada or Europe down here. And the next thing you know, that Superman syndrome makes you think that you can do anything you want, and whatever you think, regardless of your inexperience in this country, is going to be right and is going to work.
I agree with that as well. I think a lot of people as well, they come down here and they think that they can apply all of their things they've been accustomed to in a first world country like the U.S. or Canada, and they can apply it down here and it'll automatically work, when in a lot of cases that mentality just doesn't function here.
Well, I see it especially, you know, I live here in a tourist-centric community, and one of the things I see across the street is there's a large bungee jumping tower, all right? And I think it's interesting because, you know, if you were to, as a listener right now in the United States, see a tower across from your office where you could go up 200-300 feet and put a cable on your feet and jump from that tower, would you do it? Well, the answer for most people is hell no. I'm not I'm not going to walk out of my office here in Minnesota and jump off a tower. Well, why? When you come down to Costa Rica for a week or two even, does all of a sudden that make sense to you? That is something I'm going to do, So I understand during vacation we have a couple of rum and coke and we decide, I can do anything. But that tends to, as we're talking about, stretch out over the whole term of the expat's tenure in these foreign countries. That sort of mentality just seems to linger.
I'm in complete agreement with you. Quick question for you, Corey. How many places did you live in Costa Rica before you finally settled in Jaco?
This is my third place here in Costa Rica. I initially lived just outside of Heredia. Heredia is where you are, I believe. It's a bedroom community just outside of San Jose. It's a nice small city, university town, good vibe, very quiet in El Campo, as we like to say, yeah?
Yeah, it's I actually live in the Heredia area. I love it. It's cool year round, and it supposedly has the most beautiful women in Costa Rica, but I think that's everywhere. So
I don't know. Jaco's a pretty beautiful town, I gotta say.
No, we trump you. Come on.
That might be. I don't know. We can stack them up and have a contest. But when the radio was beautiful, I really liked it. But the problem is that I found the traffic just to be abhorrent. It was impossible to get anywhere in good time, because it's such a popular place to live.
It is a little bit tough, especially, there's traffic almost, to get from Heredia downtown, it takes a while, but, I just like living in it because it's a quaint community. It's very, very close. Everyone's close knit. And, I don't know. It's just, for me, I needed to be closer to the city, because that's where a lot of the action takes place. And if I want to go to the Caribbean side or I want to go to Guanacaste, it really makes it an easy hub to be in. If I'm in Jaco, I can go to Manuel Antonio very quickly, but to get to Guanacaste, it's kind of a trek.
Well, I found too that my issue was, and as much as I love the radio, especially on the weekends, because I used to work like a dog during the week, and I'd have to commute all over the place. So obviously the traffic was killing me, but on the weekends, Heredia, and I was living specifically just in a small town north of, there's a town called San Joaquin, which is a small town just out of Heredia. It's a very popular little spot. North of that, there was another town called San Lorenzo. This is a really small little community, very tight-knit, not a lot of fences around the houses. Incredible people. I felt very warm and welcome there, but the commute to work was killing me every day. So I ended up moving to Santana, which is another very popular community on the west side, about 12 kilometers west of San Jose, towards the beach here now where I am. And the 5 years that I lived in Santana prior to moving here were fantastic. I loved that community. I love that area. The amenities, the infrastructure, the mountains, the weather. I found just even, in those few kilometers, as we talk about in the show, Costa Rica having like 27 microclimates. The weather just between Heredia and Santana were drastically different. A lot less rain, a lot more sun, a completely different mentality there.
Yeah, it is different, and that's one thing I really encourage people when they come to Costa Rica, even though it's like the size of Pennsylvania. There's so many microclimates and there's so many different little communities here that you really don't know where you want to live. I've been in Atenas, which is a great retirement town in the mountains, which actually gets a little bit chilly at night. Heredia is a beautiful area. There's San Pedro, which it's the college town. Then you've got the beach towns like Jaco and Tamarindo, and there's smaller beach towns like Samara, which, you really don't know where you want to live down here until you've actually experienced it, personally. So.
No, you're absolutely right, because, now that I'm living in my third community here in Jaco, again, the lifestyle is completely different from either of the two that I lived in previous. So, this is something we always encourage people to do if you're coming to Costa Rica. It's an easy flight. And it's a cheap flight if you don't mind, those little squishy seats on Spirit Air if you're coming from the U.S. It's a cheap, easy flight to come down here. And, there are so many great rental opportunities all throughout Costa Rica, fully furnished, beautiful places in any area of the price spectrum that you can imagine. You can get a nice little cheap place in Heredia to a super expensive high-end condo here in Jaco if you like. All furnished, all ready to go, and give you a chance to kind of sink your teeth into the culture and the communities and experience it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that when you come down here is even though it is a small country, there's so many different locations to live, and you really can find something that really fits your persona and fits the lifestyle you want. If it's not in Heredia, if it's not in Guanacaste, if it's not on the Caribbean side, you'll find it somewhere here.
And we see a number of expats who live down here long term change their location. They don't necessarily stay in one place because, again, unless you've purchased a property and you feel that you're locked into that, which I don't necessarily recommend, at least not right away. You know, a lot of expats have moved from places like Jaco back to the valley, or from the valley to places like Jaco, because they decided, you know, I needed to get closer to the beach or away from the beach, or I needed a change in lifestyle, or I can't take the traffic or what have you. So, you know, moving around is an easy thing to do and not uncommon.
I agree.
Now, one of the big things I think a lot of people bring up, and we've got some emails about this today, about relocating to Costa Rica, and I think we've got a couple minutes to speak on it if we could, and that's the safety issue. A lot of people are worried about security here in Costa Rica. What's your take on it overall?
Overall, when it comes to safety, there aren't really that many violent crimes that happen here in Costa Rica. The crimes that occur are more petty theft, a little bit of robbery here and there, but it's stuff. You look at Detroit or like in the States, and you look at the violent crimes that happen there, they're really, unless you're going around downtown walking like with a billful full of cash in your hand, then there's most likely you're not going to be anything violent's going to happen to you here. It's just don't go out and do stupid things. Don't get drunk and walk around at 2 or 3 in the morning in dark alleys. And again, as we talked about before, if you use your common sense, Costa Rica is a very safe country to live in.
Yep, you're right. Well, got to pay the bills here and do another commercial. Want to thank you again for your time, Dan. Appreciate this.
Not a problem. Thanks a lot, Corey. You have a great day. Put on your board shorts this afternoon, grab a Corona, enjoy yourself.
Going to do that, my friend. And for all you guys who are tuned in, thanks so much. Stick around. We're going to get to some of your emails. Hour 2, I'm having Lyle here in the studio, of course. You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
But you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
You're tuned in to overseasradio.com, the station to help you reach your dream destination.
Ready to check out Lake Chapala? Then you need to check in with Sid Grothenner, the Lake Chapala information guy and exclusive buyers-only realtor. Why, Sid? Because Sid's been helping people just like you decide if Lake Chapala is right for them for over 11 years. Sid tells it like it is without the sugarcoating. As an exclusive buyers-only realtor, he only represents the best interest of his clients, and there's never a charge to you for his services. That's right, your representation is paid for as part of the seller's closing cost mandated by their agency listing contract. So, send Sid an email today to get the ball rolling to sid@chapalaclub.com. That's SID@CHAPALA.com. Please put Lake Chapala as the subject line because Sid gets hundreds of emails and he wants yours to stand out so he can answer it right away. You'll be glad you did.
Establish your business in one of the most extraordinary cities in the world. Connect to a market of over 1.8 billion people from Dubai. Over 1,400 companies from around the world have made Dubai Airport Free Zone their Middle East and Africa headquarters. Dubai Airport Free Zone was rated one of the top free zones in the world. Let us help you set up your operations at Dubai Airport Free Zone and expand your market and sales in Asia and Africa. Call us at 214-537-9665 or send us an email at info@dafz-usa.com. That's info@dafz-usa.com.
Worried about rising taxes, costly insurance, out-of-control healthcare, economic decline, staggering debt, mortgages, and retirement? It doesn't have to be this way. Escape to Ecuador, one of the most beautiful countries on the planet, and at EcuadorAtYourService.com. Be your guide. Ecuador has been named the #1 retirement destination in the world 3 times in a row. So if you're searching for beaches, jungles, farmlands, cities, affordable healthcare, and a richer lifestyle at half the cost, contact EcuadorAtYourService.com.
OverseasRadio.com, broadcasting from Panama to Paris and beyond.
You know what I just heard? What? Costa Rica has the reputation of being the happiest country on earth. But it gets better. This Week in Costa Rica brings you the best information. The best. From the people who understand why so many choose to call this beautiful place home. Bringing you the latest information from expats, experts, and people just like you who chose to escape, retire, and live in Costa Rica. This Week in Costa Rica. Pura Vida.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. My thanks again to Dan Stevens for joining me on those last 2 segments. Always appreciate his slant. You know, he's a great guy, runs a great paper, does a lot of good things here in Costa Rica, and it's always fun to talk to him. I want to get to the emails that I promised today. And a lot of the emails that I want to cover here, and we'll be covering with Lyle coming into the studio for hour 2, are going to be painting the topics with a fairly broad brush. And I think the reason being is that we need to make sure for a lot of the listeners who are new to This Week in Costa Rica, first of all, welcome. And we want to cover a couple topics that you may not have heard before in previous episodes of this radio program. First email I got here is from Kim in Arlington, Virginia. And Kim says, "Hi, Corey and Lyle. I'm moving down to Costa Rica in the next 6 months. I have a little bit of money socked away, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough to sustain myself there long term. I'm wondering what the work situations are like in Costa Rica and what the job market is like." Thanks for the email, Kim. Well, there's another way we need to approach that question, because I know you are coming from the United States, and the job market is not the best, no matter what the Obama administration is telling you. But to work in Costa Rica is a little bit tricky as a foreigner coming in. Now, Kim, what you didn't mention in your email is what type of residency you plan to apply for here in Costa Rica. You mentioned you have a little bit of money socked away. The question that I have is not how much, but in what fashion is that socked away? Do you have something that is going to pay out a long-term annuity? Do you have retirement savings or investments that are going to be doling out some dividends for you? Because this is going to affect what type of residency you might be applying for down here. Of course, in Costa Rica, you can fly in and automatically get a tourist visa. This tourist visa can be for up to 90 days, during which time you can freely travel and live here in Costa Rica. But on that tourist visa, Kim, you cannot work. Let me make this 100% clear. You cannot legally work on that tourist visa here in Costa Rica. Now, many do. We certainly don't advocate that because, again, it is illegal. Imagine if someone from Costa Rica, let's turn the table, flew up to Arlington, Virginia, walked into your office and started working. Well, how would you feel about that? Well, we can't do that. But again, like in Costa Rica and as in the United States, people do, but not recommended. You don't want to be that ghost in the machine. You want to actually be part of the system here. There's a couple of different residencies that you can apply for. Some of them under which you can work, some of them you cannot. So let's clarify here what some of them are. First of all, one of the most popular residencies here in Costa Rica are for individuals who are retiring and moving down here. And either retiring or enjoying a long-term annuity or the benefits of a fruitful investment, shall we say. These individuals are called pensionados. This is like a pensioner. And the requirement is simple. This requires proof of $1,000 US per month income from a permanent pension or a retirement fund. You need to prove that you have this money coming from somewhere in the United States or somewhere in the world into Costa Rica. But you cannot, as a pensioner, work as an employee in a company. Let me reiterate, you cannot work as an employee in a company. You cannot come down here as a retiree, prove that you have $1,000 US coming into a bank account, get that immigration status and your little cedula, which is your ID card, and go walk into Hewlett-Packard and apply for a job because of you have a vast experience. No. You're here because you're retired. That is the status that you've been granted, and that is the circumstances under which you have chosen to live in Costa Rica. So, Kim, if you're coming down and you're going to apply for the pensionado and hope that you're going to get a little part-time job on the side, I'm not saying that you couldn't, but I am saying that you shouldn't. It is against the law. Another status, of course, that's very popular here is something called rentista. The rentista, or the renter's status, requires absolute proof of $2,500 per month for at least 2 years, guaranteed by a banking institution or simply by making a $60,000 US deposit into an approved Costa Rican bank. Now, this money is yours. It's not like you're giving the money to Costa Rica. But what you are proving is that you are soluble. You can live here in Costa Rica without having to, Kim, take a job. This is the point. Being granted this rentista status means that you can live here. You can rent an apartment. You can buy a home. You can travel freely throughout Costa Rica without having to exit and renew your visa. But you cannot work here as an employee. Now, in each of these two statuses, I must point out, you can, though, own a company and receive income. This is the difference. You can have a business that brings you in money. You simply cannot work in that business. If you want to open a restaurant here on the beach, you certainly can, but you cannot wait tables in that business. If you want to open up a bar, you can, but you can't schlep those drinks because you are working in that business. Ergo, taking a job from a Costa Rican. This brings me to that next status, Kim, which is key. Inversionista, or an investor's status. By investing $200,000 US in any business or a specific amount of investment in a certain government-approved sector. So not as easy as just dumping $200,000 into something. As many of you know, for example, in Panama, a popular retirement and investment destination, you can buy a big home, nice piece of property. If the value is a certain amount, you're granted residency in that country because you've spent that amount of money in the country. Well, in Costa Rica, it's a little different. You have to invest in something that is a sector approved by the Costa Rican government that is, of their opinion, an improvement upon Costa Rica. Once again, you cannot work as an employee in that company. You can receive income allowed from the project. You can own this company. You can receive income, but you can't work there. See where I'm going with this, Kim? You cannot go and just get a job with another company unless you become one of two things: a permanent resident of Costa Rica. And a permanent resident is a first-degree relative status of a Costa Rican citizen through marriage, or someone who has been under a residency program for 3 years in the country, such as the previous three that I mentioned, and can then apply for a permanent residency thereafter. So let me reiterate. You can either come down to Costa Rica and become a Costa Rican by marrying one of them. And again, this marriage of convenience is a thing that many people bring up, and again, we do not recommend this. But if you do come down here and you fall in love and you get married to a lovely Costa Rican man or woman, you automatically become a Costa Rican, under which you can then work. You can take that job at Hewlett-Packard or Intel or schlep your own drinks if you like. The other way, of course, is that if you are a resident for 3 years under another status, you can then apply for a permanent residency in Costa Rica. Basically, what it's saying is that I've been a renter here for 3 years in Costa Rica, and I want to now stay. I love it. This is where I'm going to be. You can then do that, become a permanent resident and apply for a job. Pay your taxes, put up your picket fence, and call it life. The second way, Kim, under which you're able to work is that you can be granted a work visa in Costa Rica. Yes, the all-elusive work visa that many people speak of. Well, I had one. I worked for a company that sponsored me for this visa. And sponsorship for a visa is complicated because the company has to prove that you possess a set of skills that cannot be easily replicated or duplicated by a Costa Rican. What I mean is that you're doing something that is so specific and usually so technical that there is no one in the country available for that job. The company that sponsors you has to prove that Kim from Arlington, Virginia, has a skill set or an ability that we cannot fill by hiring a Costa Rican. Therefore, we have sought out a foreigner to come in and take this position, and we found Kim. We are then going to sponsor her for a work visa, and she's going to go through a lot of the paperwork and legalities that are associated with some of the previous residencies that I mentioned here. Criminal background checks, birth certificates, all of your academic diplomas and certificates have to be authenticated, copied and proven, documents translated. It's a big mess. Fortunately, there's great lawyers for this, of course, to ease the process. But the long answer was that. The short answer, Kim, is this. If you're coming down to Costa Rica and you're not applying for any kind of a residency, you're simply coming down on a tourist visa to check it out, well, welcome. And you're certainly able to do that. But if you're also going to go job hunting, you cannot. That said, of course, there are opportunities for individuals to come down, and there's some gray areas here. One of the gray areas that we do mention is the field that I came from, ESL, English as a Second Language. There are many English teachers and other languages in Costa Rica working here on a tourist visa. Is it legal? It's a little gray. I hope that answered your question, Kim. We're going to get to a whole bunch more emails here. Lyle's going to be jumping into the studio for hour 2. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Stick around. We're going to give you 5 minutes of news. And come right back to your emails and your questions. 888-741-7472 is the number if you want to call in. My name's Corey. You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
Sit back and relax. You are tuned